Next on stage, Agnė Šerpytytė, Space Tech Partners Senior Consultant.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. So, you want to hear about satellites today, right? Okay, let me ask you a question first. Has anybody used a satellite today? Anybody? Okay, good. Different question. Have you used Uber or any kind of taxi app lately? Okay. Have you checked weather forecasts, like to see if it's going to snow in Lithuania in spring again? Okay. Last question, very simple. Have you watched TV lately? No? No TV watchers. Okay. Well, all of these things have to do something with satellites. We use satellites every day, we know it or not, and today I'm going to tell you how we're going to be using satellites even more in the future. But before we go there, before we go to the future, let us go to the past. Does anybody know what this is here on the screen? Yes, Sputnik. Sputnik was the first artificial satellite launched by the USSR in the 50s. It marked the beginning of a space race between the US and USSR and the dawn of the space age. So it's an important name, it's an important part of our history, but more difficult question to you. Do you know any other satellite name besides Sputnik? Anybody? Well, if you do, you can be proud of yourself. Because most people don't, and it's normal, I didn't know. Because we use satellites for though we have launched more than 2,200 satellites since Sputnik. That's a lot of satellites, that's a lot of names, but we use them for very mundane purposes. We use them for TV, for cell connection, for radio, for weather forecast. We use them for our location on Google Maps. So satellites dissolve into the background of the surfaces we use every day. But as I said, we're going to be using satellites even more in the future, and there are a few reasons, few innovations behind this, and one of them is reusable rockets. Now, if you've been in space news, following space news, you know that reusable rockets are a reality. Because of what SpaceX has done, what Blue Origin has done, we have reusable rockets, which makes the launches cheaper. Now, second innovation that is important in our context is that the satellites themselves, the satellites are getting smaller. So the typical kind of standard satellites, the ones that I'm going to be talking today mostly, those are the size of SUVs, so it's kind of a big truck. You go to small sats, they're the size of a small beer fridge. And microsats are the size of a beach ball, and we go to nanosats that are the size of a toaster, and they weigh less than 10 kilograms, which is important. Because to send 1 kilogram to space costs 10 to 20,000 euros. Right? But with reusable rockets, we can go down to 4, even less than 2,000 with Falcon Heavy, for example. So we're going to be launching more satellites and cheaper. SpaceX alone is planning to launch more than 4,000 satellites into lower orbit to bring internet to the remote areas. So 4,000 satellites. That's twice more than you launched since Sputnik. So the space race continues. Just motivations behind the space race, everything is different. What we can do as people with these services, satellites, is different. And today I'm going to talk about how European Union is actually at the leading edge of this race. Now, has anybody heard about European Union satellites before? Okay, well, very good. If you have heard, you probably know we have two biggest programs. One is for Earth observation, and it's called Copernicus. And the second one is Galileo, is for geolocation. And I work as a contractor for both of these programs, so I might be biased. But I do think these are the most far-sighted and cutting-edge programs out there. And there are many reasons why, but for me personally, these three are most important ones. Number one, it belongs to the European Union. So the satellite programs are not owned by private entities that have their own short-term revenue goals. And do not belong to military that have their own agenda, right? They belong to civil entities, they belong to the EU. Second reason is because each EU member takes part in shaping the policies that govern these programs. So, for example, Lithuania, when we were at the presidency of European Union Council back in 2013, we were part of writing the user requirements for Copernicus. So we're all part of it. And the third reason, I think the most important one, is because the access to the data from these programs is full, free, and open. And it's open to everyone, not just EU members. Though these programs are focused on bringing benefits to the EU, anybody in the world can access the data and the services. And I hope that through what I'm going to tell today, I'm going to be able to portray why this is such a pan-global, far-sighted perspective, and why is it so important for building a better future in our planet. Okay, let's dive into the programs. I don't really have time to go through both of them, so I will introduce Galileo very, very briefly. Galileo is a satellite constellation for geolocation. So it's like GPS on your phone, just GPS satellites. They belong to US military, and Galileo is owned by us, by European Union. And GSA is the agency that is in charge of Galileo, and we're doing lots of cool things. Like right now we have competition for IoT, Internet of Things ideas. We organize hackathons. We do a lot of cool stuff. So if you want, you can just check on their website what they're doing. Okay, Copernicus. As I mentioned, Copernicus is a system for Earth observation. And for next 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to go dive deep how the system works. But after that, I'm going to tell you a story. And the story will explain what does 18th century economical thinker Robert Thomas Malthus has to do with Lithuanian Ministry of Agriculture. So bear with me through the technical part, and we'll get to the story, okay? All right, Copernicus. Now, if this looks complex, it's because Copernicus is a complex system. It involves satellites in space, it has components on the ground, it has different agencies and data centers and users and services. It's like a lot that makes it work. And today I'm just going to give you a brief overview, the basics of the system. So keep that in mind. And don't worry, I'm not going to be using this slide. Okay, first component is space component. And these are the Sentinel family. These are a family of satellites, 6 different types of satellites. These are owned by European Union, managed by the European Commission, and operated mostly by ESA, European Space Agency. So these satellites go around Earth, they monitor, and they send data back to us. Second part is also in space. It's what's called contributing space missions. So these are other satellites that do not belong to European Union. These are satellites that belong to other organizations. But Copernicus gets their data as well to have the most complete, most accurate, and most up-to-date data possible. Okay, so second component. Third one is on the ground, is what we call in situ, or local component. So these are the sensors that are placed in the air, in the water, and on the land, and they monitor things locally. Okay, now all this data, the data from the Sentinels, data from the contributing space missions, data from in-situ component goes to data centers. Now, if you work with data, you know that data itself is not intelligible, right? You can't just send a bunch of data to a policymaker or to a business person and have them make decisions based upon it. You have to shape it into something. You have to make it into information. That's why Copernicus has services. And these services are these packages of data, packages of information for the purposes of atmosphere monitoring, marine environment monitoring, land monitoring, climate change, emergency management, and security. And you can access these services full, free, and open. All of them except security for obvious reasons. Okay. And examples of these data can be the ozone layer status or information about pollution in lakes and coastal areas. It can be information about location of ships in the seas for security reasons. Though all of these things might seem far away, right? Like satellites are used a lot for research purposes, but some of them can really come close to our lives. For example, imagine you're in Italy. You're having a nice vacation, beautiful country, right? Beautiful nature. And Etna erupts. And there's an earthquake. And your normality, your reality is shattered, is broken. You don't have the systems that you rely on. You're there and you're mostly scared because you don't know what to do. You don't know what's happening. You don't have the information. We as humans, we're limited in our physicality, right? This is all we have. That's why we create technology. We create technology to enable us to do more. So in this case, we have our eyes in the sky, sentinels. They come to this area. They take a photo of that area. They send this information to the experts at the Copernicus Emergency Management Service. These experts take this data and they make specialized maps. Make specialized maps about this outbreak. So they know the extent of the outbreak. They know which roads are broken, all these kind of things. And this happens within 24 hours, right? And these maps are sent to the local emergency managers, and then they have information. They know where to go. They know what to do. So if information is power, I think that's one powerful way to use it. And if technologies are extensions of ourselves, I think that is one heck of an extension, right? Okay, but it's still serious. Still, yes, it's earthquakes and all these kind of things, but satellites can be used for fun, and I hope that you'll find the next things fun. So here's SnapPlanet. This is an app. This is basically Instagram for satellite imagery. You can download it, you can play around with it, it's really fun. Or this memory game called Earth from Space. As you see from that quality photo, it's made by me. I own this game, and they have these little cards with satellite imagery, and you have to put them and memorize them. It's really hard, but point is, satellites can be used for something fun. Okay? So, let's dive deeper. Let's dive deeper into the space component. For me personally, that's the most exciting one because it has, like, rocket launches and has man-made things going around Earth in incredible speeds. So the Sentinel family. As I mentioned, this is a family of satellites that belong to the EU. There are 6 different types, and this is Sentinel-1. It is a set of 4 satellites, and they all have a radar. And with radar, satellites can see through the clouds. They can see in nighttime as well as daytime. So Sentinel-1 is used a lot for monitoring, for example, Arctic and Antarctic regions, for seeing the glacier movement, for ice sheet movement. They give crucial information to the ships in the Arctic Sea. But they also use for other purposes like farming. Sentinel-2, this one, is a set of 2 satellites, and they're called the color vision of Copernicus. Okay? So all the pretty pictures that you've seen in my presentation and online usually are made by Sentinel-2. But Sentinel-2 is not only for pretty images, it also has very important information for land monitoring. It can give such data as the level of chlorophylls inside leaves or level of water inside leaves. It can give information about, it can differentiate different crops and can give information about their status. So Sentinel-2 is very important for precision farming and the future of food security, a topic I'm going to go back to later. Okay, so next one is Sentinel-3. This one has all the tech it needs to monitor our oceans, our marine environment, our seas. They usually work in tandem with the in situ component, the sensors that are inside the seas. And they can give such information as salinity level in the seawater and different movements of currents and changes in the temperature of oceans, so all kind of things that make marine scientists really excited. I'm not sure if any of you is a marine scientist, so I will not go deeper into this. As for Sentinel-4, 5, and 6, they are going to be launched in coming years. And all of them will have spectrometers and radars and all technology they need to see our planet, to see our oceans, our atmosphere, our land. And the combined data from the Sentinels, from the contributing space missions, and from the components on the ground are going to enable us to see and understand our planet like we never had before. Okay. Are you ready for the story? Or do you want to play a game first? Game? Okay. Tell me, which city is this? Like, I chose very simple, straightforward one, the satellite image. What city? Vilnius. Yes, yes. This is Vilnius from the satellite. Second one is harder. More to the north, but still in Lithuania. Yes, Šiauliai. I'm from Šiauliai. I had to make that plug, you know, self-promotion. Okay. So what does Robert Thomas Malthus has to do with the Lithuanian Ministry of Agriculture? Robert Thomas Malthus, in the late 18th century, wrote an essay called Principles of Population. In this essay, he popularized an idea that the growth of population will surpass our capabilities for food production, and that is going to cause collapse of civilization. But when Malthus wrote his essay, there were not even 1 billion people on the planet. So we're in 2017, we're 7 billion, we're still growing. What happened? What Malthus did not see, what he could not foresee, was exponential growth of technologies that enabled us to get more food from the same area. But we cannot take these technologies, the exponential growth, for granted. There are some technologies that are forced into being from market forces, right? But these kind of big projects, the long-term projects that require a lot of upfront investment, the projects that need different countries to collaborate, the collaboration between different scientists and policymakers and all of that, these complex projects are really hard to pull through. This is usually not something what one nation can do, but it's something what European Union can do. It has done, because Copernicus is exactly an example of such a project. Okay, well, what does it have to do with Lithuanian Ministry of Agriculture? I know I'm showing this slide the third time, but third time is a charm. So, this year, Lithuanian Ministry of Agriculture approved the use of Sentinel-1 and 2 for farming. And as I mentioned, Sentinel-1 and 2 are used for precision farming, which means we're going to be able to detect the abandoned and arable area, expanding the area where we can grow food. We're going to be able to give personalized information to the farmers about the status of their crops, diminishing the labor costs, diminishing the prices, and hiring the yield. Now, of course, if you go to Maxima, you don't see a food shortage, right? But, and this might seem like a trivial change, but there's a bigger picture there. There's a bigger picture. And it's because we live in a world where changes in China's dairy consumption changes our milk prices. We live in a world where drought in Australia causes our meat prices to skyrocket. We live in a world where unexpected storm in Colombia gets our pumpkin spice lattes even more expensive than they are. We live in a connected world. And because do you know one thing that astronauts say when they come back to Earth? Well, there's been many astronauts who went to the orbit, most of them to the ISS, International Space Station. They come back, They give interviews and they have different experiences, but there was one common thing that almost every astronaut has said. And it is how small and how vulnerable our planet looks from up there. Just a pale blue dot in a vast ocean of black nothingness. And right now, our pale blue dot is experiencing a lot of issues. And there are people out there, fearmongers, who take this information and they use it to reinforce the Malthusian story of scarcity. They use it to scare people. They use it to get people to make bad political decisions that we've seen that last year a lot. And of course, I'm not here to say we don't have these issues, we do. But there's so many smart people working to solve these problems. There are already technological solutions out there that at very least can mitigate the most negative effects of these problems. But it is up to the governments first, and then to the organizations and to individuals, to all of us to take these technologies and use them. And I'm really happy that the Lithuanian government decided to take this step to the future. And I really believe that like this, working together, we can break the story of scarcity. And we are the stories that we tell ourselves. We are the stories that we live in. And I really believe we can break the story of scarcity and create a new story. A story of abundance. And I believe that you can be part of it. And there are many ways you can be part of it, of course, but as I'm talking about Copernicus today, I'm going to tell how you can be part by using Copernicus data. So by now you know, I've been drilling this in my whole presentation, that the access to Copernicus data is full, free, and open. And you know that it's not only scientists or policymakers that can use this data, it's like entrepreneurs and businesses and individual people. So if you're a startup and you want to have some cool idea using satellites, or if you're a person and you want to sound cool to your friends because you're using satellites, it's all good. And so this is not an extensive list, but these are examples of areas that Copernicus touches. So if you're in health or forestry, urban planning, or tourism, you can find ways that Copernicus data can help your business. But if you're just starting out, like you haven't worked with satellites before, you haven't worked with geographical information systems, anything like that, so you can start simple. You can start from this. It's called EO Browser, Earth Observation Browser. So this is a project by Synergize. Synergize is a Slovenian company that uses Sentinel data to make cool products, and that's one of them. So using this browser, you can see your home city from above. You can see any places you like. Actually, the images that I used for today's game were taken from the EO browser. But if you want to dive deep, like plunge in, I suggest you take a photo of this slide. So these are the key links where you can access Copernicus data. And this might seem a little bit complex right now. Well, the system is still being built. I mean, we are getting enormous amounts of data. We have more than 10 terabytes of new raw data per day. It's more than 10 petabytes and growing per petabytes. Have you heard petabytes? So yeah, more than 10 petabytes per year. And we're still learning how to manage it. We're still learning about it. But I can promise when you start using this, it's going to become more clear. And Copernicus on their YouTube, they have step-by-step tutorials explaining how you can use it. Okay. If you're a programmer, yes, here. If you're a programmer, you can join a hackathon. So there's quite a few organizations that are organizing Copernicus hackathons, and GSA, the organization that is in charge of Galileo, they have Galileo hackathons. Actually, one was this May in Gdansk, so I hope it's going to get to Vilnius someday as well. Okay, now you can join also Copernicus Accelerator. This can help you to get from idea to startup to actual business. Or you can submit your idea to Copernicus Masters. Copernicus Masters is this yearly competition where we award the best ideas using Copernicus or Galileo data. And I'm always amazed by the diversity of ideas that people have there. Like last year, I was in Madrid in the Copernicus Masters Awards, and there's few ideas that really stuck. Has anybody played Pokemon Go ever? Okay. So there was this game called Pokemon Biodev, a biodiversity game using a Pokemon idea, but instead of Pokemons, you have to catch local flora and fauna, and that's how you learn about your environment. So it's amazing, it's a very fun thing for adults, but for kids, for schools, that's an amazing tool. And there was another idea. It was by a Lithuanian Vilnius University PhD physics students or professors, but basically the idea was using drones and Galileo data to check for electromagnetical compatibility. Now, I have no idea what this means. I know it has something to do with antennas, but I'm always amazed how many ways people find to use the data. And it is up to us, it is up to users to define how technology is going to be used. Now, if you want to look at the updates, just follow Copernicus on Facebook or Twitter. There's a lot of things happening right now, a lot of events, a lot of different competitions. So Copernicus EU, just Google it, very simple. Okay. So, I've been zooming in for last, 15 minutes? And for the last part, I want to zoom out again. We're living at the renaissance of space age. It's really exciting times to be, I think. Jeff Bezos is talking about manufacturing in space. Elon Musk is talking about colonizing Mars. There are companies out there using nanosatellites to scout resources on asteroids for future of asteroid mining. I mean, these are not sci-fi ideas. These are actual companies doing business right now. And if all of these private and public entities, we are expanding our infrastructure into space. And satellites are and going to be a very important part of this infrastructure. And whatever you do to use space data, either use Copernicus or Galileo or anything else, whatever you do takes us a step closer. A step closer to having a better future on our planet, and a step closer to becoming real space-bearing species. You're welcome to join the journey. Thank you.